Listen close. What you call imagination has been misunderstood. In common speech, it's fantasy, a pastime for children and poets. But beneath that trivialization lies the sovereign faculty, the first cause of all form. Before a skyscraper existed in steel and glass, it lived as a scene in a mind. Before a marriage was announced, it was first rehearsed in secret conversation with the invisible. The universe, in its deepest operation, answers to imaginative acts. Consider this: every measurable, shared reality began as a private assumption. The engineers, the founders, the lovers who reshaped their days, they all rehearsed an inner state until the outer world obediently reflected it back. That's no metaphor. It is a law. The mind's imagery is not alone. It is the seedbed of events. Physics, with its precise language, calls this the role of observation. But the practical truth is even more intimate. Your inner scene is not passive. It is active causation. This power is not about wishful thinking. It is about disciplined imagining. There is a difference between idle daydreams and deliberate acts of attention. The former dissipates. The latter concentrates spiritual energy into a single point and bends circumstance toward it. Imagine a sculptor. Clay obeys not whim, but sustained pressure and direction. Your imagination is that pressure. Hold a scene until its emotional atmosphere saturates your body. The world will respond. That. Many fear this because it sounds like arrogance. But the real arrogance is to assume life just happens to you and not because of you. Responsibility is liberation. When you accept imagination as primary, you regain authorship. You also learn to measure your inner states, for unexamined assumptions produce habits that accumulate into character. Character is simply an outer pattern that matches habitual inner assumption. So how do we begin? First, notice what scene plays repeatedly in your mind. Do you rehearse failure, worry, apology? Those images are building blocks. Second, choose deliberately. Craft a scene representing your fulfilled desire. Vivid enough to move feeling, but simple enough to sustain. Third, inhabit that scene as present, not future. Say to yourself, in silence, this is now. When you can do this calmly, persistently, you have engaged the first cause. The rest, the outward arrangement, will follow a law it never resisted. Remember, this work is exacting, not mystical fluff. It demands focus and feeling. The universe answers to the felt conviction in you. Begin here, and you begin at the true origin. Science and spirit are not rivals. They are two languages describing the same reality. Quantum mechanics has shown that what we thought solid and independent is porous and responsive. The particle's behavior changes with the act of observation. Probability becomes fact when attention is applied. That discovery is a mirror, a confirmation of a truth the mystics have taught for ages. Consciousness participates in creation. Imagine an experiment where an electron's outcome depends on how it's watched. This is not theater. It's the cosmos's subtle handshake with attention. The physicist's observation is not merely recording. It is a relational event that brings a possibility into being. Replace physicist with you and observation, with your settled feeling, and the parallel is unmistakable. A concentrated inner state is a form of observation on your life's probabilities. But do not be misled into thinking you must peer into microscopes to influence reality. The mechanism is identical. Attention collapses potential into manifestation. When your consciousness lingers with feeling and vividness, You have, in effect, chosen among many probable outlines of your life. The difference between despair and triumph is a difference in where the mind places its steady gaze. There is nuance here. Quantum experiments are precise, replicable. So too must be our inner experiments. Random hope is not the same as systematic assumption. The physicist sets conditions, controls variables. So must you set the scene a clear, concise inner narrative, repeatedly observed from the vantage point of fulfillment. This is the method name of the mystic. It is also the scientist's procedure. The resistance comes from identification with outcomes. We watch the world and feel frightened. Our fear becomes the observation no one asked for, and thus collapses the probability into what we dread. The antidote is to take responsibility for the observation, to deliberately look with the eyes of the end fulfilled. Train your attention like a lantern pointed at the scene you intend to realize, not at the trembling shadows of lack. The bridge between quantum law and imagination is simple. Both show that the world is interactive with the observer. Your inner life is therefore not private theater. It is active engagement with possibility. When you conceive of reality this way, your actions acquire coherence. You will begin to notice how gentle, consistent attention shifts events. A conversation goes differently. A door opens. Because you are no longer merely reacting, you are observing from an assumed end, and the quantum, like world, rearranges to match. This is not to confuse metaphor with mechanism. It is to recognize that the same principle that makes particles behave under observation is at work in human affairs when attention is made precise, sustained, and feeling-laden. Learn to be a deliberate observer, and you will learn to design outcomes. Words are maps. Feeling is the territory. You can describe a city forever and never arrive. Feeling is the arrival. The operative law in manifestation is not idle imagining, but the sovereign quality of feeling. When you feel the end as present, the psyche organizes in service of that feeling, and the outer world follows. What does it mean to feel the end? It means to embody, now, the emotional and sensory texture of the fulfilled desire. If you seek new work, don't merely think, I will have a job. Feel the scent of the office, the handshake, the ledger balanced. If you seek forgiveness, feel the release in your chest, the face of the other, the warm closure. The mind translates these concentrated feelings into a magnetic condition that invites matching circumstances. This is not psychology's optimism, it's metaphysics in practice. Feeling is the language reality understands. A thought alone is thin, feeling thickens it into form. The universe does not grant wishes at the level of words. It responds to the density of your inner state. Hence the instruction, when you rehearse a scene, saturate it with feeling until your body participates. The body is the instrument through which the inner state expresses itself outwardly. Beware of half feeling. Many attempt the method with a divided heart. I assume this, but the but kills the assumption. The inner contradiction is the leak through which your power escapes. To feel the end as present requires unity. Consistent attention, no disclaimers, no simultaneous belief in opposite outcomes. Hold the internal performance alone. Let the rest of your mind be merely the audience. Practice this with small experiments. Choose an insignificant desire and feel it as accomplished for a short, disciplined interval each day. Watch how circumstance becomes inclined to confirm it. These small victories build confidence, not blind optimism, but empirical proof that the inner rule is true. Then graduate to larger works. The law scales with fidelity. Another essential point: feeling precedes action. Many expect to act first and then feel confident. Reverse this. When you feel the outcome already achieved, your actions that follow are informed, decisive, and attract opportunities. The person who acts from the end moves differently. Their presence itself becomes an instrument of alignment. Doors open because the energy they emit matches higher probabilities. Finally, remember patience. Feeling is not cheap magic. It requires refinement. The mind will throw up old memories, resentments, and logical objections. Treat them kindly. Return to the scene and rehearse again. The power of feeling is cumulative. Each repetition is a stitch in the fabric of the new reality. Keep sewing. When you make feeling the standard, you stop negotiating with life. You become the author of facts by the persistent life of your interior assumption. That is the law. Observe it, practice it, and let the world rewrite itself around your conviction. This is where philosophy becomes craft. Living in the end sounds beautiful. It becomes uncanny when practiced exactly. The method is surgical. Establish the end. Enter the scene, saturate with feeling, and return to life carrying the residue. Over time, the residue reshapes circumstances until the evidence aligns. Step 1. Define the end with surgical clarity. Avoid vague wishes. I want more money is a fog. Instead, define a scene that implies the result: a check in hand, a bank notification, a conversation where you accept an offer. Detail matters. Sensory detail gives the scene weight. Step 2. Enter the state nightly and briefly throughout the day. Create a short ritual. Sit for 5 to 10 minutes. Close your eyes and imagine the scene as if happening now. Not tomorrow, now. Use the present tense language inside. I am receiving the letter, not I will receive. Feel the accomplishment in the body. Let breath and posture confirm it. Step 3. Use phrase and action as anchors. A simple phrase, "It is done," or "I am home," can act as a lightning rod when whispered at the close of your rehearsal. Pair it with a small, ordinary gesture, touching your ring finger, rising from a chair so your body stores the state and can retrieve it during the day. Step 4. Live as if. This is not fantasy for fantasy's sake, but reasonable alignment. If you assume the end, you will naturally act in ways that match. Dress a little better. Speak with the authority of the fulfilled person. Make decisions from abundance, not scarcity. These acts are signals to the outer world and to your own nervous system. Step 5. Let evidence accumulate without forcing outcome. Resist the urge to inspect results constantly. Fixity of attention is not obsession, it's calm assurance. When opportunities emerge, test them against your inner conviction. Accept what confirms, gracefully decline what doesn't. Be discriminating in action. The inner state will inform wise choice. Step 6. Rehearse reversals. If the outer contradicts your inner state, do not panic. Return to the scene, deepen feeling, and view the contradiction as transitional, a provisional arrangement that will be reworked. The mind that panics feeds the contradiction. The mind that rehearses dissolves it. Step 7. Keep records. Notice small confirmations. A call, an insight, a coincidence. These are not trivial. They are feedback proving that the inner work functions. Gratitude for minor confirmations amplifies your mood and stabilizes expectation. Step 8. Integrate into relationships. Do not hide this practice as secret superstition. Treat it as personal discipline. When asked, describe your serenity, not the technique. People react to your energy more than your explanation. The method is precise, mechanical, and humane. It's not about willpower alone, nor is it about denial. It's about making the inner life authoritative and letting the outer life be rearranged. Do this daily and watch how the day itself becomes your ally. Doubt is the saboteur disguised as realism. It whispers statistics, cites history, and appeals to caution. But in the laboratory of inner creation, doubt is the experiment run by accident. It collapses probabilities into failure. To practice this work effectively, you must become a scientist of belief. Test, observe, correct, and eliminate doubt as an unwanted variable. Begin with a taxonomy. Identify the kinds of doubt you harbor. There is skeptical doubt, a healthy, investigative pause, and corrosive doubt, a persistent disbelief in the possibility of the end. The former refines, the latter kills. Your job is to convert corrosive doubt into testable hypotheses. Transform doubt into experiment by short, measurable rehearsals. Choose a small desire, imagine it vividly for a set period, then track external feedback for a week. You are not gambling, you are measuring. If confirmations increase, you have data. If they don't, refine the scene, adjust feeling, and repeat. This scientific approach removes sentimentality and replaces it with accountability. You are not hoping, you are observing. Another key move: cultivate inner proofs. Doubt thrives on absence. If you can create a microproof, a small, undeniable confirmation of your method, doubt loses its authority. Many practitioners have found that a trivial wish, carefully assumed and then fulfilled, creates a constellation of confidence that dissolves larger disbelief. It is this tactic. It is procedural rather than mystical. Language matters. Notice how you talk when doubt arises. I don't think I can, versus I will try. Swap try for I will assume now, and watch the inner weather change. Commands to yourself shape neural pathways. The more you command with the feeling of the end, the less room you give the doubt to operate. Surroundings also hold power. Doubt loves isolation. Engage witnesses, a trustworthy friend, a community, or even recorded private declarations, who can testify to your calm and repeated practice. The presence of others is not for validation alone, it is for stabilization. When a mind is witnessed in its resolve, the resolution becomes harder to undermine internally. Beware of premature checking. The mind checks because it wants reassurance. Those checks often retrieve data that is misinterpreted, feeding doubt. Institute a no peeking rule, rehearse, then wait a reasonable interval before inspecting results. Forced impatience is the enemy. Confidence matures in time. Finally, admit the moral element. Doubt often arises from fear of responsibility. When a desire succeeds, life rearranges, and you must act differently. It is easier to stay small. Recognize this animal reluctance and choose responsibility. Belief as experiment honors the universe's responsiveness and your role as co-creator. Dissolve doubt by treating your inner work like a lab: clear intention, repeatable procedure, recorded feedback, measured refinement. Do this, and what once looked like magic becomes reproducible art. Human beings are imprisoned by a story about time, a linear parade where past binds present and future dictates possibility. But the deeper law reveals time as flexible, a field shaped by attention. The no is not a fleeting instant. It is the platform from which probabilities are chosen. When you occupy the eternal present with the feeling of your fulfilled desire, you arrest time and let the desired timeline accumulate. Think of time as terrain and your attention as a bridge builder. You stand now, your assumption spans to future possibilities and reaches back, rewriting memory so that past and present collaborate to sustain the new fact. In practical terms, this means your assumption can generate retroactive evidence, memories and impressions that align with your new state. The past doesn't change physically, but your interpretation of it changes, and that altered narrative informs your behavior and thus the world. Probability is not fate. It's a distribution of potential outcomes. Attention collapses certain branches into actuality. If you allow yourself to be trapped by what usually happens, you grant probability its power to recreate the familiar. Instead, occupy a new branch by offering steady, felt attention as if it were already true. The branch receives your vote and begins to thicken. Patience is misread in modern culture as passivity. Here, patience is an active stance of presence, to live from the fulfilled end, while conducting life skillfully. This is not fatalism, it's strategic timing. When the internal assent is firm, you will start to notice synchronicities. These are not random, they are breadcrumbs from the newly chosen timeline. How to practice? Choose a scene and imagine it as already passed within your mind, as if it has already happened. Write down a memory paragraph describing details of that fulfilled outcome, as though remembering it. This exercise trains your brain to accept the new narrative and primes neurocognitive pathways to act in accord. You are literally changing the interpretation of your past in service of the future you want. Also, respect incubation. Great shifts often gestate quietly. Your inner work sets currents in motion. The visible manifestation is the ripple that finally becomes wave. Do not mistake lack of immediate result for failure. The world is restructuring. Sometimes structural change is silent. A practical marker of success is a change in emotional baseline. If you have rehearsed a new state enough that your daily mood shifts toward it, the timeline is aligning. External confirmations will follow as natural consequence. Until then, keep showing up in the now, dignifying the inner state as already established. Finally, treat time as ally, not enemy. Use the present deliberately to choose a timeline that favors your highest ends. When you master occupancy of the eternal now, probability bows, and the events you assumed begin to rearrange themselves like obedient instruments on a score you have written. Power without integrity is fragile. The imagination will create, but the creations must be permitted by your inner law of conscience. This is not a moral sermon, it's a practical principle. Your inner system, like any precise instrument, requires calibration. If your imagined ends violate your deepest sense of right, they will fracture and produce temporary or hollow results. Conversely, aims aligned with your conscience produce durable, harmonious manifestations. Begin by asking, does this desire honor your deeper self? Not the egoic wish for immediate gratification, but the part of you that seeks purpose and contribution. If your goal benefits others or increases capacity for good, your inner system will usually accept it without resistance. When aim and conscience align, the imagination becomes an engine of flourishing. Yet conscience can also be tangled with old guilt or limiting beliefs. Many people reject legitimate desires because of past mistakes or inherited shame. Untangle this by distinguishing authentic moral sense from punitive programming. If guilt arises, interrogate it. Is it constructive or merely habitual? Renovate your inner code by forgiving past mistakes, making reparations where needed, and affirming permission to move forward. Permission rituals help. Create a short practice where you literally give yourself permission aloud. I permit myself to receive all because I will use it to dog all. This may feel awkward at first, but vocalizing permission reorganizes nervous patterns. The universe responds not only to feeling but to the sincerity of your inner law. Be responsible with that power. Accountability is also important. The imagination must be checked by action. If you imagine wealth, but refuse to manage finances, the creation will stumble. So pair inner work with practical competence. If relationships are desired, practice tenderness and listening. If healing is sought, maintain medical guidance. Spiritual law and practical wisdom are partners, not substitutes. Another dynamic, social conscience. Your environment will test the new state. Friends may be unsure of your change. Some may resist. Prepare to stand steady while extending empathy. Not everyone will applaud your growth. That's fine. The universe won't deny what you have authorized for yourself simply because others fear it. Finally, make generosity a reflex. Generosity confirms your inner worth and loosens scarcity. When you move in ways that uplift others, you reinforce your permission to receive. The imagination becomes an instrument of circulation rather than hoarding, and circulation is the signature of sustainable manifestation. In short, align your aims with an examined conscience, give yourself permission, perform practical steps, and let generosity confirm the truth. The power you wield will then be integrated and enduring.